Coming up on Tech News Today, Intel shows off Haswell Chromebooks, telecom industry goes to war against the FCC, and why Hugo Barra left Google for Xiaomi, and how to pronounce Xiaomi. All that more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, September 12th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by GoToMeeting with HD Faces by Citrix, the powerfully simple way to meet and collaborate with coworkers and clients from anywhere. You can share the same screen and see each other face-to-face with HD video conferencing, even from an iPad. Sign up for your 30-day free trial today. Visit GoToMeeting.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use promo code TNT. And by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free trial and 20% off, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT9. And by RingCentral. We do everything in the cloud. That's why we love our cloud-based phone system by RingCentral. Zero startup costs, and RingCentral is $20 a month per user. Try it now with a 30-day risk-free trial. Buy one desk phone, get a second phone free, up to 20 phones. Call 800-543-9980 or visit ringcentral.com and use promo code TWIT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Aya Zakhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we try to keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, put them in some context for you, starting with the top 10 stories of the day in the news fuse. Michael Dell won his company back with a little help from his friends at Silver Lake Partners. Dell shareholders approved an offer to buy back outstanding shares at $13.75 a share, along with a 13-cent per share special dividend. All told, that means Dell and Silver Lake will spend $24.9 billion to buy the company back. CNBC reports the buyout was favored by 65% of the shareholders.
In an effort to assure consumers that fingerprints aren't scary, an Apple spokesperson says the new Touch ID system in the iPhone 5S only stores fingerprint data, which remains encrypted in the iPhone's processor, and then uses that digital signature to unlock itself or make purchases. So, even if somebody cracked an iPhone's encrypted chip, they likely would never be able to reverse engineer someone's fingerprint. You may, however, not want to unlock your iPhone after Zumba class. Apple testers have found the device sometimes doesn't work with sweaty fingers or moisturized hands in general.
So get dry or not oily. The Apple iPhone 5S will be the first smartphone with a 64-bit processor. Any guesses who will have the second? Well, if you guessed Samsung, you'd be right, because Samsung Mobile head J.K. Shin told the Korea Times that Samsung's next smartphones will also have 64-bit CPUs, and that device will come, quote, not in the shortest time. So if the next Galaxy S has a 64-bit processor, that means the S5 and the iPhone 5S would both have 64-bit processors.
Not in the shortest time. I love that as a release date. At TechCrunch Disrupt, Mark Zuckerberg criticized the U.S. government over the NSA disclosures. He said, frankly, I think the government blew it. They blew it on communicating the balance of what they are going for in this. In an early leak from Edward Snowden, Facebook was said to engage in an NSA program called PRISM. Facebook, along with Yahoo, filed suit Monday to get permission to disclose more information about government requests. Zuckerberg meets today with Speaker John Boehner and the rest of his leadership team over things like immigration, privacy, and a number of other general topics.
After Lavabit founder Ladar Levison raised over $100,000 to appeal a surveillance order, his legal battle has officially begun. Wired reports that details of the case, which is being contested in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, are currently under seal, and Levison's opening brief starts October 3rd. Levison decided to close Lavabit, which is a private email service used by NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden. After fighting a legal case, the founder said he couldn't discuss in detail.
At IDF 2013, ASUS introduced the Transformer Book T100. It's a 10.1-inch device, and it is cheap. $350 gets you a tablet with a keyboard dock, 2 gigabytes of RAM, 32 gigabytes of storage, and a quad-core Intel Bay Trail T-Atom CPU. $400 gets you double the storage at 64 gigabytes. The Transformer Book T100 will be running Windows 8.1 when it ships on October 18th.
Mary Jo Foley at ZDNet.com has knitted together several reports and sources that indicate Microsoft is developing a Siri-like voice recognition assistant for Windows Phone called Cortana. Cortana is also the name of an AI character in Microsoft's Halo video game series. Cortana on Windows Phone would learn and adapt using the Satori knowledge bank that powers Bing.
4 new Chromebooks from Hewlett-Packard, Acer, Asus, and Toshiba are coming soon, powered by Intel's battery-sipping, high-speed Haswell chips and expected battery life in the range of 9 hours. They're also expected to cost under $300 for Wi-Fi-only models. That's, of course, opposed to the very high-end $1,300 Chromebook Pixel. The Chromebook makers have yet to announce more juicy details, but an Acer representative confirmed that their Chromebook will be available in time for the holidays.
Gotta sip your batteries. Don't chug. It'll give you a stomachache. An attacker with inside information stole Vodafone data on 2 million customers, including names, addresses, birthdays, and bank account info. They did not get passwords, PINs, or credit card info. Vodafone discovered the breach in early September, so just a week or so ago, and reported it to police. Vodafone said the incident only affects its clients in Germany, and clients can check if their info was compromised on the Vodafone website or wait to be contacted by mail.
Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer says that Yahoo monthly active users are now at 800 million people worldwide. Now, that figure is up 20% since Mayer took over in July of 2012. She made the comment at TechCrunch Disrupt and said those numbers do not include traffic from Tumblr. Mayer says it's going to take 3 or more years to get Yahoo where she wants it.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by GoToMeeting with HD Faces by Citrix. Meetings are essential to the way we work. It's an opportunity to share ideas, to solve problems, develop creative solutions. But if your team is in all different parts of the country or even different parts of the world, coming together becomes impossible. It's just not logistically possible unless you use GoToMeeting with HD Faces by Citrix, the powerfully simple way to meet and collaborate online. We do it because we have people all over the world on Tech News Today and on Twit in general. And so when we want to meet with clients and we want to do things off air, we use GoToMeeting with HD Faces by Citrix. Allows us to see what they're talking about, see their expressions, get if people are understanding what you're saying. No matter where everyone is located, GoToMeeting allows you to share the same screen, making it easier to be on the same page. You just turn on your webcam and you see each other's faces in HD video. Even present things from your iPad. Try GoToMeeting free for 30 days. For this special offer, visit GoToMeeting.com, click the Try It Free button, and use the promo code TNT. Remember, use that promo code TNT. GoToMeeting is believing. We thank Citrix for their support of Tech News Today. Joining us now to discuss the stories of the day, happy to have John Brodkin, Senior IT Reporter at Ars Technica. We've had him on the show as a segment guest before, but you're joining us for the whole show today. Thanks for doing that, John.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Excellent. Let's kick off talking about those Chromebooks, IS. Tell us a little bit more about what we're going to get from all these different vendors.
Yeah, so at IDF, there's going to be some new Haswell Chromebooks that are coming out from HP, Acer, Asus, and Toshiba. They're going to have tons of battery life, 9 to 10 hours. Wi-Fi models are going to cost around $300 or lower. As Sarah mentioned before, the HP Chromebook 14 has got a 14-inch display, HDMI port, 16 gigs of storage. You get 100 gigabytes of Google Drive space for free for 2 years, USB 2.0 and 3.0 ports. And the HP one's going to come in colors, so it's going to be nice and pretty if you like colors. $299, and it's going to be available before the holiday season. And the Acer Chromebook looks a lot like the 11.6-inch C7 that Acer came out with a while ago. It weighs under 3 pounds, but pricing isn't known yet on that. And we've seen it before. Chromebooks have been based on Intel before, Intel Atom before, and as well as ARM chips, but this one's going to be on Haswell. Also at IDF, Intel showed off perceptual computing, which uses 3D gesture controls, face recognition, eye tracking, voice recognition. Now, the next line of Intel processors, the Broadwell, will support integration of a 3D cam directly into the bezel of a laptop. We've talked about that before. John, what news do you find more exciting? A new line of Intel-based Chromebooks or the promise of perceptual computing?
Well, the Chromebooks will have a bigger immediate impact because I guess they're coming out right away. But I don't really find them that exciting. You know, the key with a Chromebook is that you need something that's $200 or $300 because it doesn't do everything a Windows or a Mac computer does. This 3D stuff, I assume it's more of like in the future, but it just sounds a lot cooler and more interesting to me. I mean, to me, the Chromebook now it's just a matter of getting the price down and extending the battery life. There really isn't a ton more they can do with it other than adding offline capability, but that's really a software update rather than a hardware update.
Yeah, the way you phrase that question, Ayaz, it's sort of like if you're a practical person, you're really down to earth, you're going to be more excited about that cheap $200 laptop from multiple places. You know, that's a practical thing. It's going to be available soon. It's real. The other thing is a little more the visionaries it gets excited about, right? And I'm more excited about that stuff too, John. Perceptual computing, we'll see how it works. But with things like the Leap Motion out there that do work, somebody who can bring all of this stuff together, eye tracking and motion graphics, they can make it work really simply, make it work really easy, because there is a learning curve with the Leap Motion. It takes a while to get used to it. I think that could be something that revolutionizes the way we use our computers. And I don't, everybody wants to say that every time they come up with anything, but that really does change things. You're no longer hands on the keyboard all the time.
Yeah, the problem with Leap is one of my colleagues reviewed that, and the review video was just him repeatedly failing to do anything with Leap and then giving the screen the middle finger. It's pretty much very difficult to use now, so hopefully someone can perfect this.
Yeah, one of the articles was mentioning how Intel must love the idea of perceptual computing because that means the processor's got to work harder, and it gives users more reason to upgrade. Because if you have these special features like, well, my old computer can't do this, and this new Broadwell should be able to do it, and that's supposed to come out in 2014. So they did show off I think it's from Creative, a Sense 3D camera, $200. It's kind of a chunky looking thing. It looks like a little Kinect. That's supposed to do the same kind of thing.
I guess if you're thinking more long term, it's kind of exciting to say, oh, well, here's the latest line of Chromebooks that are, sub $300. They're going to be here for the holidays. And yeah, as you mentioned, John, they're limited. However, eventually what Intel's doing in its perceptual computing and what it provides to low-end computers, mobile computers, will converge more. And something like the Chromebook is not going to always be seen as, well, it's cheap because you can't really do all that much stuff. You're going to be able to do a lot more with fancier chips.
All right, let's talk a little bit about net neutrality. We mentioned previously on the show in the news cues about Verizon starting their case against the FCC and the open internet rules. Today, John Leibowitz, the former FTC head, is lobbying now for the telcos against the U.S. House. He's meeting today, trying to get the House to take privacy regulation away from the FCC and consolidate all broadband regulation under the FTC. That's the Federal Trade Commission. One of the arguments that the telcos have been using is that the 1996 Communications Act excludes information services. Now, what those information services were meant to be in 1996 and what they are now are two different things, but they're saying if you go by the law, information services is us, and we shouldn't be regulated by the FCC. Also, AT&T lobbyist Jim Ciccone was speaking yesterday questioning the FCC being involved in competition matters and antitrust powers. Larry Downs backed him up on Forbes, arguing that the current antitrust law covers favoring content or charging content providers to reach customers, and that's an FTC. So that seems to be the push right now, is to try to get Congress to move broadband regulation to the FTC. I guess these guys think they can get a more favorable ruling from the FTC than they can from the FCC. And of course, Verizon has their case. They're arguing two things. One, that they've never been declared a common carrier, so the FCC doesn't have the authority to regulate them with open internet rules. They're also making a First Amendment argument, which it's hard to tell, but didn't look like the court was really buying that one. Tom Wheeler is set to take over the FCC soon. Probably a lot of this has to do with the telcos getting as much ground gained in their fight for freedom from regulation before a new FCC chair takes over. John, what do you make of all of this maneuvering?
Well, I think the FCC made a mistake by not declaring companies like Verizon, Comcast common carriers, because now they're having a very difficult time defending these rules in court. It's very important. The concept that people like Verizon shouldn't be able to block content or charge for a faster lane to consumers. There's a very real chance that law could be, if not overturned, at least gutted in a very serious way.
I think the common carrier thing is one of the battlegrounds for this, right? Because a lot of
Right.
people immediately assume, hey, you know what? It's like shipping something. And that's where common carrier originated from, is the idea that if you're shipping something, then the carrier shouldn't care what you're shipping as long as it's not hazardous or dangerous. They shouldn't get to look in your package. They should just, you're paying them to take it somewhere. And isn't that how the internet works? And the carriers are saying, no, we're an information service. Should ISPs be common carriers?
Well, yeah, a lot of people think they should. The problem is the FCC said they weren't, and that's kind of one of the roots of all this.
Did they say? I'm asking here. Did they say they weren't, or did they just not say they were?
No, they said they are not common carriers. They did that in a way to strike a more politically viable compromise, but didn't really work, because now they're trying to impose rules that sound like the types of rules that you would impose in common carriers like traditional phone companies. And, you know, it's now at the U.S. Court of Appeals, and the judges are saying, well, if they're not common carriers, you've even said that, how come you're applying these rules that sound like common carrier restrictions, telling them they have to carry all traffic to consumers? Now the FCC is sort of doing a lot of legal gymnastics to try to say that we do have the authority to regulate them even though they're not common carriers.
The Washington Post article mentions the confusion from the telecoms, saying, like, who are we supposed to listen to? There are multiple regulators there. Like no possible way could you have multiple agencies that have power over a kind of industry. That seems a little bit false to me. These are really large companies that can afford to figure out multiple levels of regulation. So the idea they're like, well, it's got to be the FCC or FTC. It's like they're probably trying to angle for something favorable, but it seems a little bit like a false kind of sense of, oh, well, we don't know what to listen to. It's like, you're large billion-dollar corporations. You can figure this out.
Right. They have teams of lawyers to figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. And really, the question here isn't about packet neutrality. A lot of times people want to descend into like, well, you got to do quality of service. You know, you got to load balance. You got to manage. And those things are absolutely true. What this is about is business plans. These are no longer about how the internet works. It's about how the internet gets paid for. And what the telcos are trying to say is we can't innovate the way we've been innovating if we're not allowed to charge more for people like Google who are free riding on the internet. And the lie of that is that Google doesn't access the internet for free. Google pays a lot to access the internet. They may pay a lot to, you know, for the equipment to do it, but they are paying to access. We're all paying to access the internet. Nobody's free riding. These aren't private networks. And the United States is no great shakes as far as the internet rollout. And that's another thing, is that everyone tries to debate these numbers, but 500 megabit per second connection in Hong Kong costs you $25 a month, according to the Akamai report that came out in July. A 500 megabit per second connection from Verizon Fios in the U.S. costs you $310 a month. So there's a pricing issue going on here. I guess the telcos could argue that's why they need to be able to charge Google, so they can charge you less. But it doesn't seem to be a problem over there in Seoul or Hong Kong or places like that. Let's talk about Hugo Barra. That's more fun. He got to go to China, and he's excited about it.
Yeah, he has a great conversation with Kara Swisher over at All Things D. It just provides a lot more insight into how long he's been interested in working with the company Xiaomi. He also has a really great little phonetic way for all of us who are not exactly sure how to pronounce it. Xiaomi. He says he wants Xiaomi to be less the Apple of China, as it has been compared, and more the Google or Amazon of the future. And he may be the person to do it. He's Xiaomi's first major non-Chinese hire. And he says he's been in serious talks with the company. There were rumors, of course, that there were some personnel reasons for him abruptly leaving the Android team. He says, no. He's been in serious talks with Xiaomi for over a year, but the relationship with that company has lasted quite a bit longer than that. In fact, he's been close with Xiaomi's president, Bin Lin. He says pretty much since he started at Google. He said, looking back, there were teams all over the place. They did this thing where every quarter we would have a mobile leadership summit in different cities and countries. He says, at my second day at Google, I was on a plane flying to Beijing. We were having a quarters meeting there. Lin at the time ran engineering for Android in China. So they started a working relationship. By the end of 2010, Lin had left Google. He had started Xiaomi with some other Google Android engineers, product managers. Barra says, because I was a member of the Android team, I was already going to be working with them really closely on what they were doing next, and what they were doing was pretty phenomenal. So kind of turned into and started with well, you work for Android. We've got our own version of Android that works really well. How do we expand internationally? How do we get out of the Chinese market? We're doing really well here, but we want to be a global market. And it kind of evolved into, well, why don't you come help us do this? Barra says, I'm really not a business guy, but I want to do something with deep user insight to lead the effort to be able to say we grew this business globally. He says it's a dream job. He says building a global company that could be as significant as Google one day is something that he's extremely interested in. And he also says this is a company that's building hardware as if it was software. Small teams, scrappy. They iterate. I guess my main question for you, John, is, I mean, do we think, this all sounds great. Sounds like he's very happy, dream job indeed. Do you think that Xiaomi can be a next Google in a few years?
I doubt it, because I don't really know much about them, to be honest. What I'm curious about, do they just make hardware with like a stock version of Android, or are they heavily customizing it the way that Amazon has done?
Yeah, they customize it. They have something called the MIUI over the top of Android, and then they sell you services and software on top of that.
However, it is received very well. I mean, it's known, at least as certainly if you compare it to other handset makers in the Chinese market, as, again, the Apple of China. It's something that that people find to be extremely well done, which is why the Android team wanted to work with this company so closely in the first place.
Well, I guess getting an ex-Google executive on board is a great move. But they might be better off just targeting the Chinese market. Not that they wouldn't target the U.S. market anyway, but there are a billion or so people in China that they could get these phones over to.
Yeah, that phrase, though, from that quote from Barra saying they're a company building hardware like it's software, iterate. That seems really unusual, because hardware usually there's a lot of research, focus groups, all these things that you have these years of planning. This idea that I'm sure Barra wanted to be able to, with the Android, to move the hardware as fast as you could the software, but that always takes a lot of deals. You got to work with carriers. You've got to work with all kinds of bizarre manufacturers. And now that he's with a company that does the hardware and software, he might have the ability to put together products much faster. I'm kind of curious about seeing hardware move as fast as software has in the past couple of years, because we've seen somewhat of a stagnation point when it comes to smartphones and tablets. They're all kind of the same. So I'm kind of curious what's going to come out of this company.
I'm kind of curious to see if Xiaomi under Hugo Barra can shower me with new phones in the United States.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, you like that? Let's take a quick break from that and thank our sponsor. You know how much we like Squarespace. I use it for swordandlaser.com. I use it for meritbooks.squarespace.com. It's the all-in-one platform that makes it easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio, and you can be a design dummy like me and still have a site that looks good. We want to check out what you guys have been doing with it. Send us your Squarespace websites with a tweet and a link to your Squarespace website with the hashtag #TwitSquarespace. We might be talking about your site on a future episode. Squarespace has beautiful designs. If you haven't tried it out, you can go try it out. You can set one up for free. You don't even have to give them a credit card, and create a beautiful website today, and then tweet out the link to us. It can be that fast. They have gorgeous designs. It's really easy to use. It's inexpensive. Starts just $8 a month, including a free domain name if you sign up for a year. Search engine optimized. So even if you do start it today, you're going to start getting ranked in those search engines. And hosting is included. Squarespace takes care of the hosting, so you don't have to. Like I said, you can start a trial with no credit card required. Start building your website. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure to use the offer code TNT9 to get 20% off and to show your support for Tech News Today. And we thank Squarespace for that support. It really has helped keep us on the air at Tech News Today. Squarespace, everything you need to create an exceptional website. All right, John Brodkin wrote another story for Ars Technica we're talking about today. Gogo in-flight internet using ground-to-orbit air cellular, which is what they currently use, combined with satellite technology on the KU band, K-sub-U band. I'm not sure how you say that, but that allows you to Is it, what is it again, John?
I don't even know how to pronounce it. I just call it Ku, but I could be wrong.
That's cool. Satellite, you use the satellite for the download for receiving the data, and then you use the air-to-ground cellular for the return link for the upload. That means they think they can get 60 megabits per second. Waiting on FAA approval, but they hope to launch with Virgin America in 2014. John, I was excited to see this because I just want to use it. Is there anything else we should be thinking about, though?
It sounds great. I mean, right now it's 10 megabits per second. That's the entire plane. So if, like 30 people were on it, you're definitely getting less than 1 megabit per second each. So 60 would definitely be a big improvement. They said they could have multiple satellites, so they'd have really good coverage. But I guess one thing, the air to ground is just U.S. only, so it's still international flights that this wouldn't work.
They need to get it on buoys. That's what I think. Out in the ocean.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to use Google Loon, the Project Loon. That's what they need to do. Have those balloons just floating around these aircrafts. I'm with you, Tom. I'm just excited about seeing faster speeds on an airplane. A 4 or 5 hour flight for me is unbearable without internet. Like, I need to be doing something. And if I have 60 megabits per second, there's no way I'm going to get all of that. But at least it'd be faster to reload Twitter, which takes forever sometimes, which I can't believe because it's all text based. So this, if anything makes my flight experience better, I will take it.
Yeah, I agree. Having internet on a flight, I wouldn't say a 4 hour flight is unbearable without it because I could load up my iPad with movies.
You have a lot more patience.
But something that's if I've got internet, I almost don't even care if I ever get off the plane. I'm just happy in general. I mean, I don't want to say that the seats could be a lot more comfortable and blah blah blah.
Yes, they could.
And Jason has a legroom issue, which I just have to admit it's not really a problem. Yeah, but faster internet, indeed. Gogo in-flight is often an exercise in patience, really. Yeah, trying to just load something, anything. I mean, wouldn't it be nice to be able to actually live stream something from a plane? People have tried that. It doesn't really work. The speeds aren't fast enough for that.
Or play online role-playing games.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think the latency will make it difficult to play an MMORPG.
Yeah, you're probably right. And they're probably not going to lift the blocks on Netflix with 60 megabits per second. And also because maybe they don't want to because they want to sell you some sort of in-flight something or other. But this is progress. I just wish – I look at this and I see like Virgin America has Wi-Fi pretty much every flight. I don't think I've ever been on a flight without it. And then I feel like it's the opposite for some of the other carriers like United, where like the one time I had Wi-Fi, I could barely get it to work, and it doesn't seem to ever be on the plane. So it's a blessing and a curse. I would like to have this because then I can still do work and not fall behind. But at the same time, it does mean now you're doing work all the time. You have no excuse like, oh, sorry, I was on a plane for 5 hours.
Do you think they would tier it and charge you for the faster speeds? Like,
oh yeah, eventually, sure.
So like you got your 768 kilobits per second. That'll cost you $9. And if you want
neutrality
on planes,
yeah, maybe like $5 extra to have enough megabits to do Netflix.
Yeah. Oh yeah, as long as they can get that fee somehow, I'm sure they'll do it. IAS found a story about LG smart TVs trying to be smart. Smart TVs really are as smart as we want them to be. Does this change that?
I don't know. So there's a new app that makes TV promos interactive. So if you're watching a commercial and there's a participating ad, a pop-up is going to appear on the top of the screen that asks you if you want to set a reminder when that show airs. It's kind of like if you had a TiVo that could see the same kind of thing. A few minutes before the show airs, the reminder will appear on your display regardless of what your input is on your TV. So if you're playing Xbox or you're watching Netflix on a Roku, that thing's going to show up on the very top saying, hey, your show is ready. Would you like to change channels? It'll help you do that. The app is currently made for LG TVs only, but the app developer Visible World says it can bring its app to other platforms in the future, and it's in negotiations to do so. National Geographic Channel has already been using the app as a part of a beta program. The app lets the networks figure out which promos drive viewers to set reminders. So that's instant interaction. John, the app sounds like something TV networks would absolutely love. You think TV viewers are going to just flock to this?
I mean, it sounds pretty cool. I guess the difference between this and the notifications you already get with things like TiVo is that this would work even when you're playing a video game. So even if you don't have the cable box input at that moment, you would still receive this notification. I mean, it sounds pretty cool from a user perspective. Although I don't know if I'd want to be. I don't know if I'd want to be interrupted all the time, but occasionally it might. I don't know if I forgot to tape Breaking Bad or something. I would want to be reminded.
Well, and maybe I'm mishearing this, but it sounds like it's almost targeting the past, right? It's telling you, hey, a live performance of your favorite show is happening. Change the channel now. I think at least most of the people in our audience live in a world where they just assume the DVR is going to catch that, or maybe they've even cord cut entirely and they just watch on Netflix or Hulu. And so they don't really care about when the show starts. They just want to, like you said, John, they want to make sure it got recorded. I don't think this thing is telling you like, hey, Breaking Bad's on. Did you set the recording yet? I mean, that would be useful, is to make sure that you actually get all the episodes you want.
Right, and how would it know which shows you want to record but haven't done yet? That would take some. That would almost require a chip in your brain.
Google Now. Wait, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah,
they know
half
everything
of
about
this
you.
seems like, oh, so it's like setting a reminder for yourself on your cable box, but it's just baked into your TV. Okay, well, but if you're, so I guess you could just circumvent the cable box if you had one, and if you didn't, then you would get functionality that you would be lacking otherwise. But I don't really know how helpful this would be for anybody who's a cord cutter, say, unless we're talking about stuff that really matters live, sports events, variety of, I don't know, a president's address, an award show. I mean, I can count the things that I kind of care about that live element on one hand.
I think arguably for certain shows like Mad Men or Breaking Bad, things that you might not remember when they premiere because they split seasons up and all these kinds of new things that they're doing with television shows, it might be helpful, those things, because you want to watch it as soon as you can. And the idea that you don't have to go through the cable box, I can see networks just absolutely, they would love this because they know who's actually interacting with the ad right away because they're just pushing a button. And then if you have this reminder, even if you're playing Xbox or doing anything else, that I think is intriguing, because otherwise, if it's on the cable system and you forgot and you're not even looking at the cable system, you're not going to notice it. But you will always notice these ads, or not ads, but these reminders, as they were.
Well, unless you don't have the TV on. That doesn't help you much, unless it turns the TV on for you. That'd be kind of cool.
They need to add that functionality if they don't have it. Visible World will turn on the TV.
Yeah. No, they need to have like
Integrates
active
with your
notifications.
LG smartwatch.
Yeah, have active notifications like you have on Moto X. Your TV could be off, right? But then it activates a part of the screen and says, "Oh, by the way."
Yeah, push notifications for your TV. Love that idea.
Now we're talking. No, I do think, as you hit on something that is more useful, and Google actually already does this, which is tell me when the season starts, right? When they split those seasons up so that I don't forget and I make sure that I've got my DVR set. That's useful. And Google actually has that. If you search for a television show, when you look at the little card of info over in the right in the search results, it'll say set reminder, and it'll send reminders to Google Now when a new season starts for that show. So that's pretty cool. And having that maybe pushed to your television, I don't know. Let's finish off.
DVR will already, like if you started recording a show last year, it'll automatically record the next season if you had it set up that way.
Unless you move cities and your local channels changes and you don't realize it, which I experienced in January. That's a pretty niche case though. But yeah, most of the time that's not a problem. Let's talk about love, Sarah. Love for our phones. Me and my phone, we're getting serious, apparently.
Yeah, and even if you weren't, you're still in a relationship. It might be a good one or a bad one, but Intel researcher Genevieve Bell says that our feelings for our technology are simply growing stronger in general. She points to a device like the Moto X, saying, with an always-on sensor listening for us to tell it what we want, we, even if it's not a conscious thing, end up growing more dependent on these gadgets. She says she watched a YouTube video of a Furby attempting to interact with Apple's Siri. It's kind of a funny video. It doesn't actually show that technology is all that smart when two devices are talking to each other, but says there's still something there. We're probably a decade out from the next step of us really feeling as though our gadgets are kind of like living, breathing creatures that can help us and know what we want. She says people now sleep with their phones within arm's reach. They maybe name their devices. We've got voice-activated assistants that do more than just try to make sense of what we input. A service like Google Now or a recommendation on Netflix or Amazon. We're starting to rely on these services, anticipating what we want to do next, what we need. So I guess I read this and I kind of chuckled. I wonder if this explains a little bit of the fighting that goes on between fans of competing operating systems. for example, because there is an emotional bond that is kind of progressing. John, do you think this is crazy?
Well, I do think it's crazy if people name their phones. I've never heard of that. But in terms of the fights between the fanboys and fangirls of each operating system, that happened even before the smartphones became really good. People have they tie up so much of their identity and supporting Android the open source way, or supporting Apple where supposedly everything just works, and the fights get pretty epic. So yeah, it's more about it does seem to affect people's self-identities, which is kind of bizarre. But it's probably affected mine too.
I name my computers, but I haven't ever. Well, you know what? I say I haven't named my phones, but then it asked you to name the phone when you set up an iPhone, and I do give it a name there.
There you go.
It just reminds me of or parallels cars, right? People identify with their cars manufacturers. You've always seen these Calvin and Hobbes kind of cartoons where there was making fun of another logo. People. It just seems like
or Kit, the car that talked back to.
Yes, there's an
Michael.
attachment to Kit or the GPS that talk to them and this kind of thing. It's really what the devices do, right? A phone connects you to the people you love. So maybe that's the thing that's being going across the actual device. The fact that you keep this thing by your head all the time while you sleep, so you can make sure that your loved one can get into contact with you all the time. That's probably where that attachment's coming in. But it does definitely explain this idea of these fanboy flame wars when it comes to this. Well, I love my device because of what it is. It's it doesn't really matter because Twitter's going to work on everything and email's going to work on everything.
You put my friend down, I will ruin you on Reddit.
Back away from my friend. Or say hello to my little friend. I will. My phone is named Fred. And when I set it out, anyone else?
Mine was Barry Allen, named after the Flash.
I don't have a name for my phone or any gadget or any computer I've ever known. I do name my cars, and I guess they're part computer now. So I see what Bell is getting at. Really, is that just it's not so much what do you name your phone, but more of it's not just a dependent as. Hey, this is sort of an encyclopedia or a source of information. I can look up things, but my phone will tell me what I want. My phone will help me make a decision. My phone is a bit of more of a companion, and that's probably, she's right, that probably is 10 years plus out, but the shift is already starting to happen.
And the phone will tell the NSA what you like to.
NSA's best buddy.
Yeah, right. It'll back up all your data to the NSA, so it's nice and safe. All right, let's move on to our randomizer. Tight race in the randomizer poll for our live audience today. Chair pitched as an answer to new ways we sit on the job. This is a David Pogue story from the New York Times, submitted by Dr. Mom to the subreddit. Got 48 votes, 46%. But Captain Kipper also submitted a story to the subreddit. Batman and Captain America save a cat. 54% of the vote. The cat has it. It is called Randomizer for a reason, people. Other than this being a YouTube video, I don't know what it has to do with technology.
Geek culture.
Sure.
It's Batman.
I'm the one pitching it, actually. It's geek culture. That's a shock.
This guy's... He's a former firefighter. He dresses up as Batman. His assistant is dressed up as Captain America, and he happens to see a burning building and goes in and saves a cat.
I have to say, he's a pretty good-looking Batman. And I don't mean, I mean he looks like.
You don't mean fetching. You mean he looks like Batman.
Yeah, got his outfit's kind of good. He's got the chiseled features.
Maybe I'm wrong, but if you're going to go into a burning building, a cape is a bad idea. You have this long thing behind you flowing, and you can catch fire. This is not a good idea.
True.
He did actually.
Maybe the cape is flame resistant. You don't know that.
I don't. You're right. I'm sure he bought.
He's Batman, of course.
If he was a firefighter before, maybe he used his old coat to make the cape. I'm not thinking. Clearly, if he's the Batman, he's thought this through.
Maybe his cape actually puts out fires.
And does he put the costume on before the fire, or does he just always have it on?
Yes, well, there you go. Thank you, Captain Kipper and Dr. Mom for submitting stories on our subreddit for today's randomizer. Let's take one last break and thank our other sponsor for today's show, RingCentral. When we built that studio up in Petaluma, One of the things that we ran into is we weren't in the little tiny cottage anymore. We couldn't just run up and down stairs and share one phone. People needed phones at their desks. Leo was like, I don't want to run some old PBX system that's expensive. Maybe it's hard to maintain. And Russell, our IT guy, said, you get a cloud-based phone system. No brainer. We love RingCentral. Zero startup cost, no PBX hardware to install or maintain. And RingCentral allows us to easily customize all of our call handling. We can get voicemail through our email. We can get fax messages on our smartphones. RingCentral will also give you your own auto receptionist so you can greet your callers, announce employees and department extensions, get calls after hours, all that stuff, no problem. RingCentral will route your calls to your smartphone's phone service center or voicemail. If you have clients on hold, you can type a message in real time, have it translated from text to speech, and delivered to your caller while they wait. RingCentral offers all-inclusive pricing as low as $20 a month per user. You can start right now with a 30-day risk-free trial. They have a special offer for our listeners. When you buy one desk phone, get a second phone free up to 20 phones. So call this number designated for our listeners, 800-543-9980. That's 800-543-9980. Again, 800-543-9980. Or you can also go to ringcentral.com and use promo code TWIT. Ringcentral.com, promo code TWIT. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Big day on the calendar tomorrow, Sarah.
Yeah, at 12:01 a.m. tomorrow, Friday, September 13th, the iPhone 5C pre-orders begin online. Of course, the 5S is not accepting pre-orders, so all the phones will be available as of the 20th. But we're already seeing some deals. Walmart is going to sell the 16-gigabyte iPhone 5C for $79 or $20 off the full retail price. The 16-gigabyte iPhone 5S will be $189. That's only a savings of $10, but hey, it is a savings. Those prices, of course, require the 2-year contract with the carrier of your choice.
We get email. And we read email.
That's
and we
right.
respond to email. And sometimes we even read your email on the show in this segment called Incoming Message.
It's quite the setup. Dan wrote in, he said, I work for a consumer electronics company who manufactures products in China. In fact, I'm writing from Shenzhen as I oversee the start of production for some of our holiday offerings. I wanted to comment on your opinions expressed that companies may manufacture in the U.S. where the premium costs can be absorbed, such as the new Mac Pro, or else a lower margin accepted in favor of gaining market share, such as the Moto X. I think several key factors were missing from this discussion. 1, labor is only a small fraction of the full cost of a good. 2, that labor percentage can be offset if workers have higher productivity. 3, that labor percentage can also be offset when processes are automated and fewer workers are needed per good. 4, when logistics costs are, of course, lower when manufacturing a product in Texas that will be sold in the U.S. Then Dan actually sent us a link to a Charles Fishman article in The Atlantic that found that when GE moved production from China to Kentucky, an efficient redesign reduced manufacturing costs by 25% and created a more inexpensive product at retail. And in conclusion, this is back to Dan's email, I believe for products of complex design, where manufacturing and assembly are complex processes, these are cases where manufacturing costs can be on par or even beat doing so in China. Google and Microsoft may have deeper motivations behind these moves than a simple marketing story, and this could be a limited but increasing trend we see in the coming years.
Yeah, and he's got a quote in. He's got a longer version of this email, and he has a quote in there about how companies don't do things altruistically. They do it because it saves them money. The point I was trying to make. He's got a lot more info to back up the point, so I really appreciate getting that email. Well, that is it for the show. John Brodkin, thanks for hanging out with us today, man. Let folks know what you're up to over there at Ars Technica and where they can follow you and find your work.
We're at arstechnica.com, and I'm on Twitter at jbrodkin.
Jay Brodkin. I follow him on Twitter. You should too. Also, follow our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. It's the place to let us know what stories you're interested in hearing us discuss. You can submit stories for consideration. You can vote on the stories. It's how we got both of our randomizers today. So get in there and join in on the fun. We are always on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, and you can give us a call and leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. Tomorrow, we've got Darren Kitchen because it's Friday. We'll see you then.